Hello and welcome to episode 92 of On the Bench, the podcast for scale modelers by scale modelers, all about scale models. In this episode, we're going to be joined by Will Pattison later in the show to help us talk about modelling tools. That should prove to be a really interesting subject. In the meantime, this show is being brought to you through the generous and outstanding support of Anton Dvorak, John Allen and Rick, who have decided to join and support us through our Patreon. If you'd like to help support the show for as little as $1 a month, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com/onthebench. The Scale Modeler Supply. Certified Australian made, Scale Model supplies a detailed range of premium acrylic paints that have been specifically developed to cater to the scale modeler. Designed to be used straight from the bottle, SMS paints have taken all the guesswork out of airbrushing. Simply shake the durable glass bottle and pour and spray for a fast drying and extremely durable result. The ever-growing range of SMS paints will suit all types of model builders, be it military, train, car, science fiction or Gunpla. SMS premium acrylic lacquer paints will have a colour to suit you. The Scale Modeler is also your one-stop shop for all your weathering, brushes, masking, tools and accessory needs. SMS paint tools and accessories are available either directly from their website www.scalemodeler.com.au or through stockists across Australia, New Zealand, Singapore and the US. And as a special bonus exclusive to our On The Bench listeners, you will get 10% off by using the promo code OTB when ordering direct from www.scalemodeler.com.au. So go now. Go to scalemodeler.com.au. We know you won't be disappointed. And hello and welcome to the show. And first up, hello Ian.
G'day Dave. G'day Julian. G'day listeners.
G'day Julian.
Good morning.
Oh gee, once again a very muted good morning from Julian.
Oh, it's early. He's normally in bed this time.
That's true.
What's been happening, guys?
Work. That's it.
I don't want to hear about work. I want to hear about your modelling stuff. What's been happening?
Well, how about I go?
Okay. Yeah, you go, Julian. I've got nothing today.
So, I've also done nothing, but at least I bought something.
Hey!
Oh, do tell.
So, I saw that one of our local hobby shops had come into possession of the Dora Wings P43 Lancer.
Yeah.
Oh, you got one.
Yeah, so it hasn't arrived yet, but it'll get here at some point.
Wait.
I have higher hopes for this than the French plane, the Marcel Bloch MB152. Just because it's the forerunner for the P47. So yes. Because of that, its wings, I believe, bolt into the fuselage rather than the fuselage coming down on top of a single lower wing.
Oh, yep.
So in this kit, there should be no reason to break up the lower wing into multiple pieces.
Yes.
Oh,
hopefully that'll make all the difference.
What camouflage are you going to put on it? Or what paint scheme, I should say?
Oh, there's a few schemes. So there's an all aluminium scheme, which it looks all right. It's it's got the sort of the red, white, and blue tail, and I believe it's got like a red ring around the nose. That's about it. There's a few, and the rest of them are all sort of olive drab over neutral grey type schemes.
Yep.
But they got a little bit of variation and stuff to them. There's like one with a classic sort of P47 from Europe kind of look to it. It's got the white ring around the nose. I'm guessing that must be a hallmark of this squadron or whatever. And then there's another one with a yellow nose, but it's got a little bit of white at the bottom. And I think it's got like an the head of an Indian emblem, you know,
All right. Yeah.
kind of like Indian motorcycles and yeah. So I mean, it's got like even though it's a plane that never really saw action except for maybe in China. Yeah, it's actually got quite a few decent schemes in it. So
sounds cool.
That'll be fun to build.
Yes.
Ian, what have you been doing? You been buying any new stuff?
No, I'm waiting for stuff to come in so I can purchase it.
Hang on, you're waiting for stuff to come in so you can... Oh, you're waiting for new models to arrive in the shops.
I'm waiting. I've got on pre-order the new Edward Spitfire Mark 1.
Yeah.
And the Mustang, the Edward Mustang Iwo Jima boxing.
Oh, that should be nice.
And I'm waiting for the Mung Fokker DR1 to show up. So hopefully I'll be able to purchase all three at once.
Are you actually going to go and buy that, are you?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Because the good thing is when I got I think it was my 50th birthday, the club members bought me a Wingnut Wings Albatross Red Baron.
Yep.
Well, the decal sheet comes with DR1 markings as well.
So you're already set to rock and roll.
Ready to rock and roll, yes. If I can get my motivation back up again.
Oh, wow.
All I seem to be doing lately is going to work, going home, eating, showering and sleeping.
Well, there could be worse things you could be doing, so at least you're being productive in society.
I wouldn't say being productive. I'm earning a crust, which is pretty good considering most of us out here in the Sleepy Hollow of Victoria aren't.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm one of the lucky ones.
Well, I have been slaving away with my Mercury rocket and my V2, which are coming on very, very nicely. I've got to say, I'm really impressed with the Revell V2 in 1/72 scale. I was a little bit hesitant about it being a Revell kit, but gee, it's...
the later Revell stuff's not too bad.
Well, yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised, so I'm quite looking forward to getting this finished, and I reckon that I could probably almost have the V2 finished tomorrow.
Nice.
Although I've had all sorts of troubles with my airbrush, so that's sort of been that really deflated my mojo the other day. I blew an O-ring at it, and
did you get a replacement?
Yeah, I had an older airbrush, and I pilfered the O-ring out of that. I did have a set of O-ring spares, but they weren't necessarily for an airbrush, and they were too fat, and it just wasn't doing the job, unfortunately. So I'm sort of thinking, maybe it's time I got a couple of new airbrushes. So interestingly, popped up in my newsfeed, SMS model suppliers have got new airbrushes that are just about to arrive in country, and they look all right. So I might go and purchase a couple of them. Yeah, see how they go. Yeah. On the modelling front, purchasing front, I've gone and pulled the trigger on an Apollo. Ian's flashing a whole heap of O-rings. He's got any spare parts. You tease.
I got enough to rebuild about 10 airbrushes here.
I've gone and pulled the trigger on an Apollo Soyuz model kit from Dragon in 1/72 scale.
Oh.
So I'm waiting for that to arrive, and then that'll be fun.
You're gonna model it as the Kiss?
The Kiss?
Yeah, where they're both butted up to each other.
Yeah. That'll be perfect. Although I could just do the Soyuz by itself and throw away the other one. I don't know yet. I'll have to think about how I'm going to do that. Yeah. And I've been hunting around different forums about real space stuff, and I'll see that Dragon have announced, or they're going to do a Saturn B1. So that's got my interest up as well. Go nicely against the Saturn V. So I've been spending lots of money, doing lots of building.
Would you buy a SpaceX, a kit of the SpaceX spaceships?
You'd have to.
Rockets?
If it was in 1/72 scale, because I'm a constant scale builder, so that's the only criteria. I think I have found a company that does some Russian stuff in 1/72 as well, some rockets. So their resin, so I might look at pulling the trigger on that one pretty soon. Just to round it out, but then I'm going to have to buy a special display case just for all my rockets.
Yeah, because of the how tall they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's been my life the last couple of weeks.
Oh, well done. You've been more productive than me, Dave.
Yeah, I have. Rightio. Oh, Julian, I got something in the mail for you too. I got a book on. Tony Jacobs sent you a gift, and it is. Let me dig it out here. The Oxford Dictionary of Catchphrases.
Sweet.
Right.
That'll be handy.
Well, it will be, but I don't think Julian even bother reading it.
Well, he's definitely putting the feedback channel to good use.
On page 237, there is a catchphrase: "No soup for you."
Good old soup Nazi.
On page 236, "No one's a bigger idiot than me." There's lots of good catchphrases in here for you. Oh my god. Oh, jeez. Anyway, I'll try and I don't know how I'm going to get that to you because I can't visit you. But anyway, shall we dive?
I'll get it eventually.
Shall we dive straight into listener mail? We've got a few.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
And then we'll have a look at new modelling kits, and then we'll bring Will into discussion to talk about tools. And I'm really keen to get to that part of the show, actually. But first of all, Tony Jacob, who lives in Queensland, and he writes in about the question for airbrushing in humidity. And he says the way to cope with airbrushing in the worst of humidity is as follows. Number 1, don't airbrush. Number 2, if you really must airbrush, do it early in the morning. Number 3, set up for airbrushing inside. Use a good spray booth, paints that are less stinky or painting when the family's out of the house. Number 4, a moisture trap on the compressor and the airbrush. So do a double moisture trap. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Number 5, keep the sessions short to minimise the moisture buildup. Point 6, always drain the moisture traps after any session. Number 7, let the air out of the compressor tank if you do have a tank on your compressor. Number 8, open a cold beer at the start of the session. Number 9, keep hydrated with the above during the session. Number 10, celebrate the successful session with number 8 after finishing. And number 11, if all goes to crap and your airbrush spits water over your lovely kit, open another beer and take a long, hard look at yourself, and then stick to construction until the weather cools down. That sounds like some perfect advice. Oh, jeez. Anton writes, and Anton comes from Longmont, Colorado, USA, and has just recently become one of our Patreon supporters. And he writes, "Hello, Dave, Ian, and Julian. Greetings from the great state of Colorado, where outdoor life is a priority, but there are some of us that do prefer the solitary evening modelling in our shops, i.e., that's on the bench. I started listening to your show pre-COVID, and little did I know that it would become the staple during this terrible time. Your advice and insights have been invaluable and have also made me spend a few dollars in additional tools and accessories." Well, he's in trouble after our chat later on today. One thing I've heard you allude to in some of your shows that is still challenging me in particular on the photos of the flying sub. How do you effectively touch up yellow and white paint? Airbrushing is, of course, the lion's share of painting, but how do you do that? So how do you brush up or effectively touch up with yellow or white paint?
It's hard. The problem is you're going to have to end up laying down, like you're going to have to assume that your yellow layer is sufficiently properly yellow, like as 100% yellow as you can get beforehand. And then when you touch it up, you then have to touch it up to a similar degree, which means, putting a lot of paint on. But if you haven't done the first step first, trying to match it is going to be really hard.
Oh yeah.
Julian, have you got a volume control on your microphone there? Because you're booming across.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. It's setting all the dials into the red.
How about now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'll just repeat then.
No, we heard you fine. I'm going to leave it in.
Okay.
But you're right. I think also too is that going back over the top and just doing light mist coats again and again and again in the same area will also help. I have to say that white and yellow and orange would have to be the three hardest colours to paint.
I use a white primer.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't because the primers generally have better coverage than a white paint. I don't run into the sort of really transparent issues as much. And if you use that white primer as a base for your yellows pop really bright, and you don't need as much yellow paint to get maximum opacity.
But what do you use as a primer for white then?
I use the Mr. Paint or MRP white primer. That's what I use.
I just use Gunn's flat white.
But well, Ian doesn't prime anyway, so we'll just ignore what Ian has to say.
I'll go make myself a cup of tea then.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I use because I am a priming person, and for example, I did a white car, and what I did for that was I sprayed a grey primer to check for surface blemishes because it was in white plastic. Then I put a white primer over that to give a good base for the white paint that went over it.
Well,
that's how I did it.
For me, doing the Mercury rockets and indeed the V2 rocket, because they're all white with some sort of black on it, I've tried using the Tamiya primer pink, which proved...
How did that go?
Well, it went all right. But the pink sort of really shows, so you're going to put quite a few layers on there just to finally get rid of that pink. But at least then, once the pink is gone, or the pinkish tone's gone, you can then tell that you've got enough white down. I've also tried the Tamiya grey primer underneath the white as well. And again, the same sort of issues. You get a sort of dull, sort of greyish sort of seeping through, which lets you know that you haven't put enough sort of white down on top of that particular area. So, yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, if you do something like that, you'll get to a point where you've put so much paint on that you think you've gotten 100% opacity, and maybe you have. But then if you were to repeat it on another piece of plastic next to it, but with a white base underneath, you'll immediately notice the difference in color.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Good points. Our next email comes from Eric Kinzer. I hope I got that right, Eric. Eric writes... he's from the Silicon Valley, and he's been thinking of us while we've been in COVID, and also he's got fires raging not far from his house there in California, so our thoughts go out to you. Anyway, as I walk around our neighbourhood, there are many home construction projects. The first piece of equipment that one sees is an excavator that digs the basement. So this gets me thinking, why is there such a dearth of modern US construction equipment models? There are some super expensive die-cast models, a few Hasegawa vehicles, and some military construction gear, but there's nothing in the everyday construction gear like cement mixers, cranes, backhoes, etc., etc. He thinks that there's some terrific opportunities for weathering and using up a stash of orange paint. Well, I don't know. I guess it's not a subject that modelling companies deem would be perhaps profitable as such as some of the military ones.
Could be. Mind you, as he stated, that for weathering projects, some of the construction equipment would be brilliant to do.
Yeah, it would.
I remember seeing a really, really extensive scratch build where some guy scratch built a particular John Deere tractor, a modern one. And it's really unusual to see modern subjects. You see the old ones, like Mini Art's recent release of that World War II, World War One era tractor.
Oh, the German one.
Yeah, the German one.
Yeah, that's a beast.
Yeah, it does look like it's very steampunk.
Yeah,
but when it comes to modern ones, you don't really see much. And he did actually have he wanted a very, very, very specific variant of tractor. And he actually had a kit. I'm not sure who made the kit. It was a plastic kit. He had a plastic kit of a similar variant, but it wasn't the exact one. But it seemed like an awful lot of trouble to go to just for a tractor, but I'm sure he has his reasons.
Mm. Well, all I can say is just keep your eyes peeled and keep hoping. And also check out Scale Mates, because that's a great reference for what's in the hobby world out there, and you might find some subjects that are particular to construction.
Yep.
Next email comes from Jason Johnson, and Jason hails from Cherry Valley, Illinois, USA. And he writes, "Hey guys, I was wondering if you could give me some information on websites that new ship modelers could go to for reference photos. For example, camouflage colours, rigging and railing placement, etc., as I have been bitten by the ship modelling bug. And now I can't buy a kit without buying photo etch. Thanks to you guys."
My work here is done.
He says, "Keep up the great podcast, and for God's sake, leave Julian alone about the modelling noises." Well, I actually wrote back to Jason, and I recommended he goes to modelwarships.com, as that has to be one of the best sites out there that talks in general, and also has a great forum section as well.
Yes, it does.
Ian, you got any other ones you can perhaps add to that?
No, to me, I'm with you. I reckon Model Warships is one of the best sites out there.
I agree. All right. Rick Renart writes in, "Hey guys, you had an email in the last episode about a listener with airbrushing humid conditions. I recently moved from the high desert in the Mojave, California, where the humidity was about 11%, down to South Carolina coastline. Pawleys Islands, where the humidity ranges from 75% to 100%. Oh my God.
It'd be like going from the driest area to living in soup.
Once I got settled in my new home here in South Carolina, I started painting on our rear porch, which is screened in, with the same lacquer paints that I've been using. To my surprise, both acrylics and enamels continue to dry fairly rapidly. However, the lacquer thinner must not be the low VOC, volatile organic compounds. In a continued quest to save the world, VOCs, ban non-VOC lacquers. Well, that's interesting. I could never get the paint to dry completely, even after placing the model outside a few days at a time, and even after exposure. The paint would never dry. I've had to smuggle lacquer thinner in from Arizona. That's interesting. Also, he says that while he's been in South Carolina, he's been able to join 2 IPMS clubs, one in Charleston and the other one in Strand, I think that is. One of the modelers in the Charleston IPMS club owns and creates aftermarket material for 48 and 32nd scale jets. As a result of his sales, he's now able to join a model manufacturing group. According to statistics in this group, only about 1 in 4 models is sold, and only 1 out of 4 models sold is actually built, and out of that, only 1 out of 5 models is completed. Well, that's an interesting sort of little statistic there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, just looking into my cupboard here, yeah, there's a lot of kits that won't get built. I won't live long enough to build my stash.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting the same, but geez, I'm really trying hard to sort of get through it all.
Yeah.
Dave Johnson writes in, and if you remember, we had Dave Johnson on talking about Wing Nut Wings a number of episodes ago.
Correct.
And he just caught up in the last 3 episodes, and you heard about a listener asking about the method of packaging and shipping built models. He hasn't posted the how-to, but perhaps he should. What he did was he in New Zealand, the government banned the single-use plastic bags, and so he thought ahead, and because he knew that was coming up, he went and bought a whole heap of it, plastic bags. So he's still got plenty of other options. For example, bread bags, rubbish bags, and any lightweight plastic bag, he says, will also achieve the same result for packaging. We should get him back on again. Should
I think so.
Yeah. This is up your alley, Ian. Brandon Walters writes in, I've got a question about 1-350 figures. I'm doing my very first boat, which is an AFV Club Gatto class, and I wanted to have a few figures on deck. The only ones I've seen are photo etch figures which look flat. Do photo etch deck crew look any good? Are there any alternatives? Thanks for the advice. Cheers, Brandon.
North Star Models do 3D figures in 1/350 scale, and they are superb. Highly recommend them.
Very good.
I used a heap of them on my Shikaku.
Yep.
You can get Kriegsmarine, US Navy, and Imperial Japanese Navy figures, and I think they're now releasing Russian naval figures from the Second World War as well.
Well, there you go. Did you find any difficulty painting them at that scale?
Oh, well, you can't paint the eyeballs.
Yeah, of course not.
But basically, you're painting the uniform in a bit of flesh colour, and at that scale, that's all you need.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's all you need.
And we've got some late mail only just came into the inbox, and that is JG Meeks 1956 has just become our latest Patreon supporter. There you go. Thanks very much. Well, that is all we've got for listener mail. Of course, if you want to write in with anything whatsoever, you can do so by going to onthebench64@gmail.com. Okay, let's have a very short break, and then we'll jump into what's new in the modelling world. Back very shortly.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're all back. We're going to have a chat about what's new in the modelling world. And the first cab off the rank is going to be the new announcement from Mung, which is a 1/700 scale aircraft carrier USS Enterprise CV6. Now, the interesting thing about this particular model is that it features pre-coloured parts and it's snap-fit design, which I think would have to be a first for 1/700 scale ships.
No,
it's not.
Julian built one. He did this. What was it? The Lexington.
Yeah, so they've done this before with their Lexington.
Was that snap fit, was it?
Yep.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay. Well, that turned out to be quite a good kit, actually.
Yeah. I'll give that one to you, actually.
Wait.
I'm happy to give that to you. Yeah.
Apparently, the three large elevators are movable. The side doors the hangar doors can be built open to show the hangars inside. Okay. It's very simple parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10, 11, 12 parts by the looks of it. Well, there you go. Even Julian could build that.
Ouch. Ouch.
Next announcement's from an interesting company. It's a new one. Soyata. I don't know. How would you pronounce that? Suyata.
Siata.
Yeah. They're doing a 148 scale base plus a SD KFZ 171 Panther with full interior, as well as the crane and figures all in one box.
Yep.
Well, that's an interesting sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that when this company first appeared, they were doing those figures that looked more like how would you put it? Mannequins or like wooden dolls.
I remember those. Yes. Yep. Crash test dummies.
Yeah, they look like crash test dummies or but it's funny because they look like, because they're all green, right? And you don't really have an incentive to paint them because they're not realistic looking. They kind of look like army men.
Yeah.
And they're in green, Yeah, so but on the other hand, this Panther and the crane that goes over it are properly like proper models. They're properly detailed.
What do you think about the scale 148?
Yeah, and 148 is weird. But see, like the figures in this are normal figures.
Yeah.
They're not doll figures.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And it comes with the base.
Yeah.
And
And
all
the
the
details
interior
look
of the
quite-
Panther as well.
The figures actually look quite nice.
And a display case, which is interesting.
And I'm looking at one of the figures, and one of the figures looks like he's set up for COVID. He's got his face mask on.
Well, he's working on an old tank engine of the era. I'm sure it bellows lots of black smoke once it starts running badly and it needs to be put under a crane.
Yeah, with that crappy fuel the Germans had to use.
Yeah. And
the interesting thing is, like, if you think about it, when was the last time you saw a model kit that included a base?
Oh,
well, you'd have to go back to the Matchbox ones, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
176.
yeah. Exactly.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's quite a good idea, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, well,
As
basically
long-
everything's there.
Yeah, as long as they bring out like more of these sort of things, and it's not just a one-off, it could catch on.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, especially
yeah.
like the size of them is like what 250 mil by 210. So it's a reasonable size, but it's not like you could collect more than one. I think.
You're buying a diorama in a box.
Yeah,
You don't need to add anything.
and the
all
figures
there.
would match the actual setting of everything, so
Correct.
it'd all look natural.
Yep.
But 148 scale would drive the constant scale builders into an apoletic fit.
Yeah, but then again, 48 scale armor's getting quite popular now anyway, Dave.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder why that is.
Well, because so people can put them next to their aeroplanes and go, that's how big the plane is compared to the tank.
Well, that
Well,
makes,
it also helps that most of them are made by Tamiya.
Yeah.
yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
We've got a announcement from a new company called 1602, which is quite an unusual name for a company. It's Michael Boldenweg, who the man is behind Custom Scale and the source of their inspiration for many what-ifs and 1946-centric kits that are out there. They've started a brand new company called 1602, and the company's going to be making much the same genre as Custom Scale, but they're doing it now in injected plastic molded kits. So the first one they're doing is a 5.5 centimeter flak gun, a Giraffe 58 automatic. So
It's a pretty cool looking anti-aircraft gun, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And looking at some of the pictures of the actual CAD drawings, it looks to be extremely detailed. And some of the camo options that they're giving you there makes it look really, really sexy as a anti-aircraft gun.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think I've never really been into the guns. I wouldn't mind doing some olden days to the cannons and stuff, but
All right.
artillery pieces, yeah, I might sort of do one day. But gee, this is looking very tempting. And I'm pretty
I
sure
like it.
that
Looks pretty good.
those guys
Looks-
out there who enjoy doing that will be very attracted to it.
And it looks so modern too, this thing.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? The Falcon's written in.
Oh,
Okay, so what has he got to say? First of all, aircraft. Zvezda's new 172nd scale C-130H Hercules transport will be available very soon. Zvezda showed the sprues and the Herc experts seem pretty happy with what they have seen. The kit comes with 3 crew figures, and there are decal options for US Air Force, Royal Air Force, the Japanese, South Korean, and Polish operated aircraft. The recommended retail price in the UK is going to be £50, which is $66 US and $91 Australian. Oh, we've been crying out for a C-130H model in 172nd scale, and I'm pretty sure it's going to get a lot of people excited, actually, because so many different air forces operate that particular model.
exactly.
And it's a pity that the decal options don't include Australia, but I'm pretty sure there'll be lots of aftermarket places where you can get it from.
Yeah, definitely.
A&A models have announced a 148 scale Messerschmitt ME 109T. What's the T model?
The Tragerflüger. It's a naval version.
Oh, okay.
With the extended wings and the arrestor hook.
Well, the kit will include 5 decal options, a set of adhesive masks, 2 canopies, open and closed, and, of course, everyone's friend, photo etch.
Yay.
And apparently it's A&A's own model mould. So there you go. Cora models are going to be releasing 2 injection moulded kits of the British interwar Fairy Triple IF or Triple 1F in 72nd scale. What's the Fairy F?
The Fairy 3F.
Yeah. That's interwar period.
It is, yes.
It's used by the Royal Air Force and the Fleet Air Arm.
It's a biplane.
Okay.
With looks like it's got a nice streamlined, big long wingspan.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's quite an attractive aircraft.
I'll have to have a look at that. Edward have announced another boxing of the recent 132nd scale ME 108. Yeah, it was in the works. So the new kit will depict the French license-built version, the Nord 1000 Pignon. The kit includes bonus resin pilot figure as well. Special Hobby are bringing back their 132nd scale North American X-15A-2 research plane. Oh, that'd be pretty cool to get that one. 32nd scales, that's going to be large too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The Falcon writes, in military vehicles, Ace models will expand their 172nd scale range of Humber Super Snipe kits with a station wagon version and decals for 2 vehicles, British and German. Still on the 172nd scale, IBG models have announced a kit of the US World War II truck, the Diamond T968, with 50 cal machine guns. Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Dragon models have a couple of 172nd scale kits on the way. The first is going to be the Panzer IV, early production. And the second kit is a combo boxing of the LCM-3 landing craft, I should say, and an M4A1 Sherman tank. And the tank comes with photo etch for the deep wading stacks. Mini Art have shown CAD renderings for their upcoming 35th scale Panzer IV OS F, which will be a January-Feb 1945 version. Late production with interior. Looks very comprehensive, apparently, and the full engine transmission details. Driver's compartment, turret, and fighting compartment bursting with detail. Seems like all variations are also covered. For example, there are going to be 5 types of muzzle brakes included and 2 types of lifting hooks. Mini Art are pulling out all stops on this one.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Excuse me. And Dragon have also just announced a 135th scale OS FJ Panzer IV early production model. Quite possibly it's a re-release. No interior at all, and probably going to be around 30% more expensive than the Mini Art kit.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, Dragon's really just gone cheap now.
Well, they should have, because there's a while there where their prices went right through the roof.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're beefing the pricing up and, just not putting as much details in anymore.
Hobby Boss apparently are showing box art for a 132nd scale Soviet D-38 artillery tank. The D-38 is a BT-2 with a new turret mounting and a 75mm gun. And last but not least, Trumpeter have announced a couple of new 135th scale kits. There's a Russian ZIL 135 truck and the Russian S-300V surface-to-air missile system. And that's it from the Falcon.
Interesting news, Dave.
Guys, have you got any new kits or anything you want to talk about in what's new?
Not from me, no. No, I haven't heard of anything new.
Julian?
No, I haven't heard of anything new at all.
Alrighty then. Well, how about we'll take another very short break, and while we're doing the break, we'll go and find Will and bring him in. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan, Dave.
All right, back very shortly. And let's check in with Warren to see how the Golden Sprue Awards are tracking. G'day, Warren.
Hi, Dave. How are you? Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's good to hear you, mate. So, how's the Golden Sprue Awards tracking at the moment?
Yeah, really pleased with the reception that it's received from the entire scale hobby community. Nominations have come in and continually come in every day as people are finding out about the event from all over the world. It's really interesting to see where the nominations pop up from. I think looking at it, that the last time I looked at it last night, I think nominations from 65 countries.
65 countries. I think there's only about 125 countries in the whole world, isn't there?
Yeah, yep. So I'm really pleased, and I've got a little heat map on the website, and it's really interesting because you can see where the volume of nominations are coming in from, and it's really, for me, it's been really interesting just to see the spread.
And which categories turning out to be the most competitive?
Yeah, so all of the categories are being getting a good volume of nominations. The one that has come to the fore is the paint category. I guess everybody has a view on their favourite paint, and come the shortlisting when nominations close on the 25th of September, and the finalists, if you like, going into the final voting polls in October, paint's going to be a battleground.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Another very popular category is obviously aircraft. And I guess, a good part of this is particular subject matters. See a volume of new kit releases. Could do with more shipbuilders, please.
Yep. Well, that's perhaps me. I mean, I'm a classic shipbuilder, so I need to get in there and vote as well.
Yep, absolutely. Another little thing that we've started to do, and did it last weekend, rather than sort of gathering, as I'd said in the last, when I introduced the awards, suppliers generously donated a lot of prizes in support of the event. And rather than keeping all of those to the end of the event, I'm just now doing weekly draws. So really it's just to get the whole celebration feel-good factor and give as many people an opportunity to win something out of this. So last weekend, we had the first winner. Somebody won the special edition Golden Sprue stand from Top Notch. Those guys make a whole series of 3D printed accessories, as well as their own vinyl masks. This weekend, it's a paint theme. So anybody who has nominated in the event before Monday the 7th of September can be in with a chance to win one of 8 prizes. It'll either be a paint set or a selection of paints from our paint company supporters. So you could win a set from Hataka, Vallejo, MIG, AK, Mr. Hobby, Humbrol, Scale Modeler Supply, and Mission Models. And in fact, next week, we're going to do a special one during the week. Some of the companies have really started to engage with the event, and the Scale Modelers Supply, who you'll be very familiar with, have created a special edition golden paint for the Golden Sprue Awards. And next week we'll do a special giveaway to give some of those away.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Really thankful and pleased that companies like this have really got behind the event and are doing things like this. It's really fantastic.
So just again, where can people go to cast their votes?
Yep, so go to www.goldensprueawards.com. All the information is there on the front page. There's a little section that just describes how it works. You're able to nominate once in each of the 9 categories. And then at the end of September, the top nominations in each category will be put forward to the final votes in October.
And, of course, you got a Facebook page as well?
Yes, Facebook. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. It's just Golden Sprue Awards on Facebook. And yeah, please give us a like. And if you can share to any hobby groups or pages that you're part of, I'd really appreciate that.
Oh, that's fantastic, Warren. Really excited to see what the final results are. And I think we'll touch base with you again in mid-September just to see how we're tracking, because it closes September the 27th, I want to say.
25th. Yeah.
25th,
So,
okay.
Going to close the nominations on the 25th of September. It'll take me a few days then to sort through everything. And then on the 3rd of October, a new section of the website will come online, and then this is when you will be able to go in and cast your vote for the finalists in each category. And then on the 15th of November, we'll announce the winners.
Terrific, Warren. We'll touch base with you again in a fortnight. Thanks very much.
Really appreciate that, Dave, and thank you very much for giving me the time again to talk to you guys and the listeners.
No worries. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And we're back, and with us we've got Will Pattison, who we haven't had on the show for quite some time, but gee, it's great to have you back. G'day, Will.
How's it going?
Yeah, really good, thanks, mate. And I've got to say, I've been absolutely loving watching your trials and tribulations doing bare metal foil. It's been a real joy to watch that on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's gonna be that's gonna be interesting. I haven't even gotten to the actual thing yet. I'm just practicing right now, so the hilarity is yet to happen, but it will. Sure.
All right, we're going to talk about tools, and we're quite excited to have you on to have a chat about that. But before we do that, I think, Julian, you've got something to get off your chest, haven't you?
Well, not exactly. I mean, I'm sure most people would have heard about it by now, but it's the AK Interactive scandal is what I'll call it.
I'd call it an own goal, that's for sure.
Is being generous.
Oh, it was just a bad choice.
Bad
choice.
Yeah, how about that dumpster fire?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and trying to put it out with kerosene.
They didn't recover well, did they? It took them a while to sort of figure out that A, they've done something wrong, and I reckon they were scratching their heads trying to figure out what they'd done wrong to begin with, and then B, it took them quite a while to sort of respond to it and say, well, mea culpa, mea culpa.
Well, we haven't actually sort of outlined what it was about yet,
Yeah.
right?
Go for it, Julian. Let them know.
Well, so basically they've decided to release a book, and it's supposed to be about humans suffering at the hands of other humans. Yeah, like it touches on the Holocaust and biological weapons and things like that, and drug use. And
it's like
a lot of subjects you probably wouldn't want to model.
Yeah, stuff that's been built for shock value only, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so they also they did a proper job of it. They released a YouTube video to plug it, and they put it up on all their social media, and the backlash was huge.
Oh, massive.
Well, the imagery was just it was horrible. There was basically footage from like the liberation of Auschwitz, right?
Yeah.
It was that level of stuff that they were using to try and sell their product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I personally believe they should just stick to weathering products and paint, and leave the social commentary to the people that handle that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, because we love and enjoy modelling subjects that come from dark periods of human history, but by and large, I would say that 99.99% of modelers and also modelling companies treat it in a way that's respectful to both sides, whether they won or lost. and is done in a respectful way, and it's not done for the glorification of war or a political ideology, whereas AK just came out of the gate and just went bang. Yeah,
It was super clumsy.
well,
Yeah,
I've got some stronger words than that, but I don't want to sort of have to change the rating of the show.
Yeah, there was some very so once it sort of all came out, people started really going through it and breaking it down, and you could, for example, they people if you went to their website and you read the description for the book, some of the way they talked about it was very tasteless. There was a mention of figures that were to be released and coincide with it, I believe.
Right.
Mm-hmm. One of them was a child from the Vietnam War. One was someone engaging in drug use. Another one involved, was it Zyklon B or something?
Yeah.
None of these, none of them are models that you would put on your shelf. And when you're having friends over, say, "Oh, have a look at my models that I build."
Look at the detail I put into my gas chamber.
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to Warren, who's doing the Golden Sprue Awards, and there was such outrage in parts of the community that they were even writing to him saying, can they withdraw their votes that they've been casting for AK? That's how that's how much it's really affected it. So, oh man, I mean, if you want to do gore and splatter and that type of stuff, stick to zombies and vampires and
a bit of fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gosh. Anyway,
I don't even think it gore is even that popular in modeling. At most you'll see some really cartoonish attempts at it in the wargaming side of things, like Warhammer. But other than that, people generally tend to stay away from that side of things.
Yeah,
because we're building the machines, and celebrating that rather than anything else, aren't we?
Exactly, Dave.
There's just very few model makers that can really pull that off. And most of us, like you said, we're smart enough not to try.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Even as someone very skilled has to approach that with a lot of caution and take the right angle so that it doesn't come off as incredibly tasteless.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen Rick Lawler's Burden of Sorrow?
Yes, I have.
That's the guy who did the diorama of the train car and the
There's a guy who's clearly in his striped prison pajamas, carting off a wheelbarrow full of clothes. So it tells the story very, very powerfully and very quickly, and it's beautifully done because it's Rick. I mean, he's an artist. I mean, in every sense of the word. And that's probably the only example I think I've ever seen where I would say, okay, yeah, somebody actually pulled that off.
Yep.
Yeah,
totally agree.
I think if it's done tastefully and in a way, I think what outraged most people was the fact that it was a company trying to profit from the misery of the past rather than, trying to show a piece of history in a tasteful way. They weren't even attempting to do that. It was just attempting as a blatant, hey, let's try and sell a book or let's try and sell some products.
Yep.
And I think that's what got under the collar of everybody, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
Well, as I read it anyway.
The amount of false equivalency that some of the people taking AK's side were drawing was just unbelievable. I mean, because you have guys saying, well, we build models of war machines all the time, and, what about box art that glorifies bombers and tanks? And, yeah, it's not the same, guys.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Totally different camps.
Well, even on that, Airfix has pulled back on some of their box art that they do nowadays compared to what they did back in the 60s and 70s or even 80s. They don't necessarily depict now a bomber sort of with its doors open flying over Munich anymore. They'll do it in a sort of, a different sort of stylized way.
Yeah, like showing it on the apron or something more
Or
stagnant.
or what HK models have done, where they show their the Lancaster and sort of caught in the searchlights at night. Anyway,
But those are soldiers doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Because of events that are out of their control, and there are aspects of heroism in all of that, even on the enemy side, right?
Yeah,
But the thing that AK is trying to do is a representation in most cases of pure evil, and that's a completely different thing.
and trying to make a profit out of it at the same time.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So the conclusion is, if you're in the business of selling products, maybe just stay away from things like that are controversial.
Yeah, exactly.
It may not work out for you.
Stay in your lane, guys.
Yeah, exactly right.
Lesson
All
learned.
right, let's talk about tools. Let's start with the most basic tools that you need to do a model.
Your hands.
Well, not even that, because we do have a listener out there who's a one-armed modeler who, gosh, how he manages to do that, I've got no idea, but he does it quite well.
I think I know who you're talking about. He's an armor modeler, right?
Yeah. And, geez, he puts me to shame. I've got to tell you a funny story. Speaking of a one-arm modeler, about 8 years ago, I thought I'd get on a Get Fit program, so I went to the local swimming pool. So I'm in the pool and I'm swimming along, and there's this person next to me, and they're going great guns, and I'm swimming as hard as I can to try and keep up, do a turn, come back the other way, and after 2 laps, I'm exhausted, and I just get out. And to my horror, the person gets out another lap later, and he's only got one arm, and he'd been beating me in the pool. Oh, gosh. Anyway, a pair of nippers, because you've got to take the model off the sprue. And in the olden days, we used to use a pair of nail scissors or nail clippers.
Or twist them off.
But we've moved forward from that. Sprue cutters, they might be called. Nippers, they might be called. What's the best ones to use out there? And can you just buy one for it, or do you need a couple of different ones?
One of my favorite subjects, because have you ever gotten into a sprue cutter thread on Facebook?
No, I haven't.
No. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's great. If you're just looking for some LOL, a sprue cutter thread in the model making group is great. It's a great source. It's always good fun, because there's always that guy who's like, I just used my teeth. Never had a problem.
And at the other end of the spectrum, you got the guy who's paid $150 for some really overpriced clippers, and
from God hands.
Yeah, something like that. Something really overpriced, and then he's broken them.
Yes,
that's me. I'm afraid I'm not quite as bad as the God hand guy, but I feel like a good pair of sprue cutters of the single blade variety is smartest things that anybody can buy. I mean, you think about it. You buy a tank, right? And it's got individual track links, and each one of them has 3 gates on it. And there's 300 of the things. You're going to make like 1,000 cuts just to build your track, right? And yet you got guys who are like, well, I just use a razor saw.
Oh, you'd be there all week.
Yeah,
razor saw.
I just don't get that. I mean, and people make the argument that you're gonna have to sand the gate nub off anyway, and I think they say that because they just haven't ever used a really good pair of single blade cutters.
Yeah.
Now, when you say single blade, what do you actually mean by single blade for those out there who don't understand what a single blade against a double blade is? So most side cutters or nippers, like your traditional Zurons or all the Tamiya ones, they basically have 2 blades, right? It's 2 wedges. And when those wedges come together, they're basically stretching the plastic, and that's why it pops and goes flying off into Never Never Land, and the carpet monster gets it, right? Yep.
But a single blade cutter has a super sharp blade on one side and basically a flat surface or an anvil on the other side. So when you squeeze the cutter together, it actually slices it off instead of, doing the yank and snap thing that the traditional cutter does. It just makes a much cleaner cut. They're amazing. Whoever invented it is a genius.
What I will do, and I do have those particular cutters. I've got two different brands. I've got this Spay and I've got SMS. And they're fairly small sort of cutting edges and quite, I wouldn't say delicate, but it's something you wouldn't want to cut through a half a centimetre of sprue. So I might use my Xurons or something similar to cut away from the actual edge of the model up in the thicker part of the gate, take that off the sprue, and then use the finer nippers just to trim that final part of the sprue away from the part.
That's a great strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like people often break them because they're sort of misunderstanding their use. They're not clippers that are really designed, even you can use them for that. They're not really designed to take the part off the sprue. They're more designed for cleanup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting it as close to the surface as possible.
Yeah. Having said that, we did mention, or Will just mentioned before, about a guy who does use perhaps a razor saw. Now, I will use a razor saw in particular to get particularly delicate parts off the sprue, because let's think of something like a bit of lattice work or something like that that's on a sprue. Generally, that part will be under tension from the different sprue gates, and if I clip on one side, it has the potential there to break or twist the part, and I will ease that pressure by using a razor saw on one side, because I can just slowly go through it as close to the part as I can get, and I'll relieve the pressure on that, and then I'll then use the sprue cutters on the other side to take it off the tree.
That's a good idea.
And then you have the problem of trying to clean it up with sanding sticks and things like that while it's delicate. So other way you're going to break something.
Oh, well, I found a new tool, and we'll talk about that later as well. So that's it. I think for nippers, I think we've pretty much covered that off, unless you guys got anything else you want to talk about in that regard. But I think the next biggest thing... Sorry, Will, you want to jump in there?
No, I was just going to say that's like one of the most fundamental and most important things, and it might cost you $35. That's US. I don't know, what is that, like $3,000 in Australia?
I think they're roughly around what 50 or 60 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
For a good set. Yeah.
Like are freaking out because that's just so expensive. But when you think about how often you use them. I mean, if I had to pick one thing that I would say really spend some money on, it would be that.
Yep.
Well, it's $30 to cut, potentially hundreds of hours off your models.
Yeah.
Yeah, but somebody won't think anything of spending, $80, $90 on a model, and yet they'll balk at spending $60 on a decent pair of cutters or a decent tool. That's false economy in my mind. I don't understand how you can have that mentality.
And, and as far as the delicate aspect of them, I just want to say I've got a pair of the original Gundam Planet nippers that I've been using for going on 5 years, and I don't cut them any slack. I don't baby them. I cut sprues. I cut everything because I'm not getting out a saw. I'm not doing that, and I'm lazy. I don't want to sand. I don't want to, I do everything with them, and they still work fantastic. I've never even felt like I needed to replace them. So that $35 I spent 5 years ago, it's leveraged money right there.
Exactly. Yeah. It's paid for itself tenfold.
Yeah. Yep. Knives, cutting knives, blades. What's the go-to one for choice here, guys?
I don't know about overseas, but I stay away from the actual brand, X-Acto. I don't. Over here, at least, it tends to be overpriced for what you get. They'll have like the little bin of them on the counter at the hobby shop, and they'll be selling like one blade for a couple of dollars. I'm not paying a couple of dollars for one blade. I want to buy a pack of blades.
That's what I bought. Oh, you can't. It's too much light. It's basically I got them from on eBay from China. And the
All
surgical blades, pack of 100, $5. And they're
Pack
proper
of
surgical.
100.
Yeah. I bought 2 packs.
I'm with Ian. I think that the surgical blades or scalpel blades, and they come in many different varieties, you just can't beat them. You can't go past them. And I even won't use them in any particular holder. I'll just hold the blade with my fingers and use it that way. And when you compare the blades to, say, the model hobby blades that you get, there's just no difference. It makes it's like the difference between an axe and a razor blade in regards to not only its sharpness but the way it actually cuts. You just can't beat them, and you can't beat them for price.
I agree. I use the traditional X-Acto, like the number 2 and the number 11, a lot too. But I'm with you guys. The scalpel blades are my favorite. And you don't have to pay a lot of money for the holders either. I've got a couple of holders that were like $6 a piece.
Yep.
Get them on. They're the plastic ones. They're like the ones that they use that the veterinary clinics buy. You know, they don't have to be the fancy ones that surgeons use. So they're cheap.
Yeah. As long as they're comfortable in the hand.
Yep.
That's what matters.
And
this is one of my favorite ones. Have you guys ever seen this one? One of the SMCG guys recommended this one. If I can get it in front of the camera, this is the plastic handle. But look at that! Look at that little tiny blade. It's a number 15. Yeah, it's a number 15. So it looks like an X-Acto number 10 or like a number 22 scalpel blade, but it's like tiny. So for things like, cutting masking on a canopy or, scraping in a really tight, hard to get to location, that thing's magic. Love it.
And I think too that I find that the those particular blades seem to hold their sharpness a lot longer than the traditional sort of modelling blades as well, for some reason. It must be the way they chemically treat the blade itself or the cutting edge. I don't know what it is, but I get a lot more mileage out of a small scalpel blade than I do out of a traditional hobby blade.
Yep.
They're just a lot sharper to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true too. Absolutely. What's our next most essential tool on the bench, guys?
Tweezers.
Tweezers.
Yep.
Yes.
I knew Julian was just waiting to
Well, to me, that's the golden trio. I mean, if you're gonna, grab a kit and a couple of things to go model at someone else's house, right? Or if you're on holiday or wherever you're gonna go, tweezers, knife, clippers, right? Yep. You can get away with not having any of the others to some degree, but you need to have those 3.
Yep.
And I'm like you, Julian. I do almost everything with tweezers because my hands don't work very good, so I don't have much choice. So a good pair of tweezers, and you've talked about just developing that tweezer skill. You're right on the money with that.
Yeah. Not only applying enough pressure to hold it. And no more than that. You don't want to pinch it.
Ting! And you listen to that
right.
Ping!
You learn how to basically use them as an extension of your fingertips.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, can you imagine, if you actually used your fingers, like the way people who don't use tweezers very often use them, and you're just putting way too much pressure on whatever it is you're holding at all times, and it just flicks out and drops out of your hand because you're stressing the whole time. It sounds silly, but that's what you're doing with tweezers, if you don't actually, practice them.
Yeah.
And I've met modelers who are like, oh, no, I don't like using tweezers. I always send parts flying, so I prefer to use my fingers. And then you watch them struggle as they try to fat finger everything.
Yep. Yeah, the only time I actually ever did that was use my fingers over tweezers was when I was putting the front canopies on all my aircraft for the Shikaku build.
Were you afraid of them scratching the...
No, they were curved. They were like half set or quarter balls. So you couldn't hold them with the tweezers. They just go flying. So basically I had to hold them upside down and then basically drop the aircraft onto the front canopy.
That's almost the kind of
I got
thing.
it to fit.
That's almost the kind of thing you would want to use something sticky to pick them up, right?
Yeah.
Like those wax pencils, or you know, if
I
you
tried
want to buy
that,
a
but
tool or-
because I was applying clear, I wasn't using super glue or anything, so it stuck better to the wax pencil
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
it
Than
did
did
to
the
the
model.
plastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing you can do, Ian, is like see these tweezers. They have the square tip.
Oh yeah, yep.
So if you can dip them in something like masking fluid. You know that
And give it like a rubbery. Yeah, that's a good idea.
masking salt R, and when it dries, it gives you a little kind of grippy sheath on the end. Gives them a little more traction.
I'm going to use that. That's a great idea. I like that.
I must have at least 30 or 40 different types of tweezers sitting on my bench. I've got really super expensive Meng Display precision pointed tweezers, which run at about $36 Australian per pair, down to just some cheaper ones that are picked up at a model show. I tend to use the El Cheapo ones. I actually use them to hold the part while I'm spray painting. If it's a complicated and small part that I need to have a different that I can't hold my fingers while I'm painting. Although I have more recently gone to just sticking it down on a piece of reverse paper to paint, but I still like holding it in the tweezers. Even slightly larger parts, I'll just use tweezers and pick it up and just whack it under and hold it while I'm airbrushing. I think
Do you have gripper tweezers?
Have the what? Sorry.
Gripper tweezers.
Yeah.
These.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the reverse ones that hold themselves shut.
I've got 3 of them,
They're
and they're all
lifesaver.
coated in paint at the moment because I've been using them that much. I need to think about cleaning them or buying a new pair.
Just clean them, Dave. You lazy bugger.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to hold with gripper tweezers is a little piece of sanding sponge. That right there is a power tool for precision sanding in places that are hard to get to or where you just can't afford to be sanding all over the place.
Yep.
That right there. I don't know where I picked that trick up, but I'm grateful to whoever it was that taught me that.
That's a
good
clever
idea,
idea.
too.
I've never thought of doing that before.
That little rectangular blocks off of my sheets of like Infinity or Tamiya sanding sponge. Just put it in the gripper tweezers and off you go.
Well, I suppose that's the next one on the list, isn't it? Sanding tools.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, we could speak all day on sanding tools.
Yep.
So, well, you mentioned the Infinity model sanding.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, I'm a big fan of their whole product line. Yeah, they make good stuff.
I've been meaning to try it myself, but I haven't had the chance yet.
They make several different kinds of sanding sticks, but the one that I think is maybe the game changer. I've had a number of people that I've recommended these to tell me that in those exact words are their sponge sticks. They're kind of these maroon colored ones, and they come in grits that go from, I think, 400 all the way up to 4,000. And they've got a nice sponge to them. They're fantastic. So like if you're sanding across like the back of a fuselage or something, and you don't want to make a flat spot, right? So the sponge helps you maintain that contour. Just really, really good stuff. High quality abrasive. Very good.
I've got Infinity sticks as well, and they're my go-to ones. Them and the Goodman model sanding blocks. They are both my go-to sort of standard sanding sticks or products that I use. And anything else, I used to go down and go into the makeup aisle in the supermarket and pick up sanding sticks there. But man, when you use it against the Infinity ones, it's just no comparison. So I've chucked all those old ones that my wife's got them now for her nails, to tell you the truth, because I don't need them anymore. But the Infinity ones, they are just gorgeous to use.
And you've just convinced me to buy some.
And you're right. You're right, Will.
Which I've just done.
You're right, Will. There must be something on the compound that they put on their sanding product, because it just works beautifully.
Yeah, I'm convinced that not all abrasives are created equal.
No.
I mean, we've all used pick up a sanding stick and you start working with it, and all of a sudden you've got this giant trench in your part because it's got an extra large piece of sand on it or something. I don't ever run into that with the Infinity stuff. They just seem to do a really good job of sorting or sieving or whatever it is, so that all their abrasives are just really consistent.
Yeah, I tend to use the sponges, and then for the final, always wet and dry sandpaper.
Yeah, and their sponges are really good. The sponges are the same material that the sponge sticks are made of. It's just in sheets, so you can cut little pieces of it off. Use it however you like that way. But it handles water. They're just good.
Mm.
Although for really because I'm building a lot of sort of space rockets at the moment, and the tried and true method of cutting a square of good old sandpaper that I've purchased, 1200 or 800 grit, and just doing a wet and dry on the actual model in your hand. I'm not getting any flat spots whatsoever, and it's just beautifully working and cleaning up the seam lines just like that. Sometimes just putting something in your hand, because your hand's got a beautiful sort of shape to it, and there's a lot of give in your hand as well. So I'll just wrap the model inside a small bit of sandpaper, bit of water in there, and just I'm doing sort of some obscene sort of scenes here with my hand, but you guys get what I'm sort of talking about, don't you?
I don't know.
It's probably a good thing this is radio only.
Yeah.
So Dave, you also mentioned Dave. Yep. You also mentioned the sanding blocks. So that's the other side of the coin, right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to make rounded things flat, and you don't want to make flat things around.
Oh, absolutely. And you can't go past the Goodman Models product, which is the sanding blocks. They are just absolutely brilliant. Come in about 5 different grit ranges. And again, you got quality product there. And because the paper or the sanding medium is bonded to a hard acrylic block, you're not going to get any rounding, which is exactly what you don't want. And it just sit on my bench, and I just reach to them when I got a particular part that suits it, and it just works brilliantly.
I would like to see more products in that range of things, because you'd at some point one of them is going to be better than all the others, and that's what I want to see.
But the thing about the Goodman sanding blocks is it was just such a simple idea. I mean, we probably all used to do it once upon a time. We'd glue a piece of sandpaper to a bit of wood or something like that. But invariably, there'd always be sort of, some issues with that. But these sanding blocks just seem, I don't know, I can't believe such a simple idea hasn't been thought of earlier.
Yeah.
You said something really important, though, Dave, that I think a lot of people don't pick up on. That's the part suits it. Because every situation is different, right? Every part's shaped. The thing that you're trying to do, the way that the parts are going to go together, whatever, no single sanding tool is going to cover all of those situations. So you really need to have variety and figure out what works best for the way you work and the situations you find yourself in, and not try to just get one thing and hope that it'll fit every single situation.
Yeah. And like for seam lines, sometimes you don't even need sandpaper.
Right.
Because you've got these great tools, and they're just scrapers, curved scrapers.
Who makes those scrapers?
This one here is U-Star, and I've got another one here from, I was putting proper glasses on so I can actually read it, Voyager.
Yeah, I've heard of Voyager's ones.
Yeah, and it's actually quite a neat tool. It's got all little semicircles cut around it. So basically, if you're doing a gun barrel or something similar, and you don't want to get rid of the seam line, you just use these scrapers, and because they're curved, you're not going to create a flat spot anyway.
Nice.
Speaking of like scrapers and that, I just recently got one from SMS, which is it's specifically designed for taking seam lines off, and it's actually a ceramic blade. And in the past, I've always used just a scalpel blade, and I looked at this and I thought, oh, this must be a bit gimmicky. I can't see why a ceramic blade would be any superior or more superior to a stainless steel blade. And it's only arrived in the mail yesterday, so I haven't had a huge amount of time, but I did practice it today. And, oh, my God, I can't believe how just changing the material can have such a big impact on the result you get on the plastic. Because it's ceramic blade, it doesn't sort of bite or bounce as much along the plastic seam that you're trying to take off. And I found it useful where I've already assembled a particular part or a complex part. In this case, it's the stand that the rocket model sits on, and it's got some beams and some round stock in there. And I'd missed some seam lines, and because of the point on it, I was actually able to get it in there and take off that seam line. And it's done a really superb job. And again, you would think, why would the ceramic blade be different to a metal blade? But it just works really well.
Because it doesn't flex.
That's probably it. Who makes that? I can already...
SMS models.
From memory, because I believe we had someone from SMS on the podcast once before, and they, at the time, I think they did mention it, but it was only they'd only just brought it in. It was like an experimental product. But apparently it's essentially a locally made competitor to stuff that you can get in Japan.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so I think like Gundam modelers in Japan will use these things, and they've been using them for some time, but you just couldn't get them outside of Japan that easily.
Right.
Well, it's opened up a new world for me, let me tell you that right now.
So SMS is an Australian company, though, right?
Yeah, no, coincidentally a sponsor of the podcast as well.
So I wonder how do they sell outside of Australia? Like if I wanted to order one, how would I find?
They do.
For you, I'd probably go through B&A.
Okay.
B&A Model World.
And I think SMS also has a outlet down in Florida as well. So if you go to the SMS website and look for distributors, there's a page there that takes you to the US distributor.
Mm. And it's not a bad price too.
No.
So 18 Australian dollars.
Yeah, and you can get the replacement blades pretty easily too.
Yep. Don't worry, Dave. I just ordered it.
This is dangerous. This is dangerous doing the podcast this way because you're sitting at home with your computer on, and every time we talk about something, you're just logging on and saying, "Yep, I'll buy that. Yep, I'll buy that."
So far, I've spent about $50.
At this point, we're just a brain trust that comes up with stuff for him to buy.
Yeah,
that's not too long, though. I'm sitting here looking at a pile of X-Acto handles that I decided to order. Because there's all these different ones, right, that have different ways of holding the blade and different kind of grips. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to try all those. I was on Amazon. Before I knew it, I had half a dozen different X-Acto handles show up. Tools. It's an addiction.
Oh,
it is.
Absolutely. All right. So what's some of the more esoterics of the tools that we should be considering?
Well, we haven't spoken about files.
Oh, files. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Good set of jeweler's files, never goes astray.
Yeah, I would like to get a pair of actual jeweler's files and see how they how much better they are.
Yep.
Because I mean, like most people, I think most modelers would have, if they have any files, they'll be like the super El Cheapo ones that you can get from a $2 shop.
We've all got those.
It's definitely one of those things where you get what you pay for sure. I've got these little bitty Tsujiborido files. It's a Japanese brand. I guess I hope I'm saying it right. but the whole set of 6 was like $100, so not cheap.
No.
But every time I use them, I feel like a power user. They're just so sharp and so good. And I think there's another brand out there called Valorb that's Swiss that specializes in that same kind of files, and I've heard people say really good things about them as well.
Yeah.
I've got a set of Jewelers files, but I don't think they're the true Jewelers ones. They're certainly the same size, but oh man, the grit in them is so large and uneven. It's just hardly worth my time. In fact, I don't even use them anymore. There's just no point to it.
Like one of those diamond files, though, right?
Yeah, that's them. Yeah.
Different deal. Those kind of have their own place too, but those files I was talking about are the actual like file, toothed file.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, just a traditional thing. A smaller version of this thing right here. This is just a 6-inch mill bastard file.
Yep.
And you can get one of these at your local hardware store, and it seems huge for model making, but these are really handy as well.
Yeah, well,
agree.
sometimes you just need to take off a lot,
Yeah, for one of those imperfect kits that you've purchased.
Yeah, I mean, well, you think of it, if you've ever done the old, let's replace the wheelbase with resin, and then the upper wing doesn't go on because the casting block is sort of too big and whatever, and you're like, okay, I need to take a whole bunch of material off here, and there's no other way to do it except for grinding it down or using a file.
Yeah. And it's the same principle as those sanding blocks that Dave likes. Is it's a large planar surface, so you don't round parts off as much. You don't make mistakes. It's kind of counterintuitive because it's so big, but it actually helps you.
Yeah.
Yep. Fully agree with that one.
There's nothing worse than rounding parts that you want flat or flattening parts that you want round.
Yep.
And there's just no coming back from repairing them once you've done that.
No.
The best file I've found is this Border Models one, which is needle sized file. It doesn't have any teeth along the sides, so you can get it right up in the in a corner, and you don't have to worry about it taking any material off a face that you don't want it to take material off of.
Yep.
That's called a safe edge file.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I guess a good thing about files too, it's going to last you forever and ever, unlike a sanding block or something like that, because eventually that grit's going to die. Whereas a file, you just give it a good scrub and you're going to get all the teeth all cleaned again.
Yeah, I really should get like a little wire brush or something to do
Get
that.
you a little one of those little brass brushes to clean your files with.
Exactly right.
I mean, it's the kind of thing where I could probably just go out and get one. It takes 20-minute trip, but I can't make one of those trips at the moment because we're all in lockdown.
We're not allowed to. We're in jail.
All right, guys. What other sort of tools are we should we have on our bench?
Well, good set of paintbrushes for starters.
Yeah, paintbrushes. We're going to go down that track. Or we're going to stick with tools first.
Well, paintbrush is a tool.
Yeah,
that for sure.
I don't think a lot of people will buy cheap brushes, like really, really dirt cheap, nasty brushes, and then they'll end up having, because their idea, and I get it, because I had this idea too at one point, is I'll just use these crappy cheap brushes because I'm going to throw them away and replace them with more. But the problem is, if you get good brushes, you don't throw them away.
You look after them.
Yeah. And for the duration that you've got them, which is a lot longer than you would have if you just threw them away, they work a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cheap brushes just start to work badly a whole lot sooner.
And there's nothing worse than when they start losing their fibers.
Oh, I'm dropping it on your kit, as they're doing it. Yeah.
A brush stroke, and where'd that come from?
Yeah. Yeah. If you ever need any convincing, just go and look at all the people who do who paint figures, because all they use is a brush, and they all use really good brushes.
Yeah.
So what's everybody's favorite brushes?
Ooh. It's been what brushes do I have? Actually, I've forgotten. I haven't actually gone as far as purchasing anything like really expensive yet.
Like the Sable.
Yeah. No, I buy some Sable brushes, but I don't go for the big brand names, your Winsor and Newtons and your Raphaels and all that sort of thing. I haven't gone that far yet because I'm waiting till I sort of get a bit of an interest in going back to doing some figures, and then I'll splash out on one for that.
Well, I tend to get a good use out of the Holcroft brand. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Holcroft.
No, I can't say I've heard of them.
They're not cheap, but they're not silly expensive.
Mm.
And you can go all the way from, I think, big, fat, like fence-style paintbrushes all the way down to like a 20-0.
Is that an international brand?
Actually, from the local art suppliers, which down here in Australia, we got I don't know if you got them over where you are, but there's a franchise called Riot Art. And
we have like Hobby Lobby, stuff like that.
Yep. You probably find similar there.
Julian, what do you use for your detail work? Because I know your paint is super tight, so the fact that you said you haven't really splashed on brushes makes me curious.
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of, I tend to just, as long as it's got Sable written on it, I haven't been too concerned, because that's the level of money I'm willing to spend for where I'm at, which isn't very far in. I do have a proper bust that I want to paint in the future, and when time comes for me to tackle that, I will definitely be splashing out on probably a Raphael. Probably, yeah. One of those. I'm not familiar enough with brush sizes, because people, you look up recommendations on this and that, and they'll say, grab this number of this and grab that number of that. But I don't know what that corresponds to in the hand.
Yep.
But it's it's also the shape of the brush as well, and that relates to A, how it holds paint, and B, how it actually applies the paint, not to necessarily to a model, but to, say, a canvas if you're doing a picture as such.
Yeah, I tend to go for the longer bristles because they hold more paint.
Some of that depends on whether you're using acrylics or oils too.
Yep, exactly.
Because I'm not a huge acrylic painting guy, but don't they mostly want the paint to fill up the whole body of the brush? So
it dries really fast, so they need to have enough body in those hairs to keep it wet. Otherwise, if you get too small a brush, it just dries in there, and that's useless.
But like with oil, or at least the way I use oils, I'm typically only putting a little bit of paint on the very tip of the brush.
Yep.
So it's just a completely different tactic based on what kind of material you're using.
Yeah. Mm. And there are some brushes you buy which you maybe use once or twice in your life. Like this one. I don't know if you can read that. 100-0.
It's got like two bristles on it, hasn't it?
It's basically a single hair in a pin vise.
It is the tiniest brush I've ever found. And I've used it twice.
So the brush companies are shining us on with that whole thing with the numbers. Because I've been told that it's really just a measure of the size of the ferrule, and not the actual size of the brush itself. And I don't know enough about brushes to understand that. But all I know is that I've got a whole stash of brushes here, and I've got 10-aught brushes that are bigger than the 5-aught brush sitting right next to it. And so I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't know if that even makes any sense. I'm just going to use what works.
Yeah. Best way.
I'm a big fan of good brushes, though. None of you guys mentioned it, and I know, Ian, Julian, you don't want to splash on Winsor and Newton, but let me tell you something. These little Winsor and Newton Series 7 miniatures, these are power tools, dude.
Yeah.
there's two different types of the Winsor & Newton Series 7. There's the regular ones that have the longer bristles. So Ian might like those better. But the miniature series has bristles that are like half as long. So for painting details, they just, for me anyway, because I'm clumsy, but they just make it really easy to control.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of brush painting, to tell you the truth, and if I do, it's very rarely because I've stuffed up on the airbrushing side of things, or I've had to go back and sort of fix up a tiny little bit. But gee, man, it's not that often I have to pull out a traditional brush, and if I do, it's because something's gone wrong.
Yeah, but you've never built a figure, right?
Correct. Well, you don't build figures; you paint figures.
But what about weathering, Dave? I mean, I probably use brushes for weathering more than I do for anything else.
Yeah,
he's a pretty clean guy.
It's not too many of my kits actually see any weathering on it, to tell you the truth, apart from some of my armor models. And I like, for example, my ships, I like building them to museum quality where there's no sort of weathering whatsoever.
Sterile clean.
Yeah, exactly. Sterile.
Factory fresh. Factory fresh. Absolutely, Will. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Everybody has their look and their style that they prefer. So I mean, absolutely, that's awesome. So I didn't mean to open a can of worms there. What kind of brushes do you use for weathering? But yeah, that's where I use mine more than anything.
Well, because my weathering, when I do it, it's I'm fairly harsh on the brush, so I'm sort of like Julian. I'll go sort of halfway between a super expensive and a super cheap sort of brush, and I don't know what I do with it afterwards. I always seem to stuff it up and they end up in the bin because the bristles are just destroyed. So I'm really heavy-handed on my brushes. I mean, when I walk down the aisle in a art shop, you can see just the brushes are all quivering because I know I'm going to choose them. They're going to their death.
Oh no, he's back again.
The bane of brushes.
Yeah.
So like the two easiest things you can do to take care of your brushes is to get that soap type stuff for it.
Yep.
Master's brush soap.
Yeah, that's it. And don't get the paint up in the ferrule. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
I don't know how you really ever truly avoid that. I've been told that you should dip the brush in thinner before you dip it in the paint, and so I do that, but I'm not convinced it helps.
Another
I think as long as it's not encrusted around the ferrule, I think you're probably in the right direction of things.
If you just clog the ferrule up to begin with, then it can't ever get any more paint in there.
Get a pre-clogged.
Another brush cleaning product that I've found has helped me in recent times is I actually use the shaving cream as a cleaning product. I've got the old style barber shaving cream where you use a brush and you lather your face up. And I use that exact same product to clean the bristles in the brush, and it's been quite surprisingly good, actually.
Just don't mix it up. Just don't mix it up with the Ned.
Yeah, so the bane of brushes has just given you some some useful tips on how to clean your brush. I'm sure it's really good advice.
Well, and I'd recommend that you use natural products too, and this relates to also shaving brushes for your face. I mean, I was in New York and I came across a place in New York and they were selling. Let me think. I think it was badger hair shaving brushes, and oh my God, this thing is just beautiful on your face as you're lathering yourself up, ready for a shave. It's just the bristles.
What is this tangent you've gone off on?
Well, the point is you should be using natural fibers rather than these, like nylon or whatever else they use now for brush. And that's why sable brushes are so expensive, because they use sable fur.
Yes.
So all I'm saying is, if you use natural bristles, and it's just as good on your face as it is on your models.
Yep.
There are people who will argue all day that you're supposed to use only synthetic brushes for acrylic and natural brushes for the other thing, or the other way around. I don't know which it is, but I see dudes just really, saying this with total authority that you're only supposed to use a certain kind of brush. I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to use it. I'm going to get the job done. And when the brush is no good anymore, I'll get a new one.
Yep.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point. What about power tools? You guys use anything electric?
Oh yeah, I
love
power.
Oh, hang on. Will's eyes have just gotten lit up.
Yeah, right here. One of my favorite things in life that makes me feel like there you go.
The Dremel.
Sound effects for not a Dremel. Come on, what do you think we are, barbarians? I mean, I know I'm an American, but seriously, I am a big fan of Proxon. I think it's one of the greatest things ever created by man. Just love it. I would sleep with my Proxon power tools if the cord was long enough.
And what do you mainly use your Proxon tool for?
It's almost more, what do I not use it for? Because again, you guys know my hands don't work very well because of I have physical disability. But so if it's a bigger job than a file or a sanding block or whatever can handle, I'm looking at that thing thinking, all right, how can I make that work? And what I've found is that I will even use it for some really, really tiny jobs. Like I have some dental burrs. Went to the dentist, paid him $1,200. He gave me a free root canal and some really cool, really cool grinding burrs for my workbench. It was amazing. But I have used those. You were talking about having to remove the flash or the parting line from a really small, delicate part.
Yeah.
So with one of those, I will take my Proxon and I'll put one of those tiny little dental burrs in it, and I'll work that parting line off of there before I ever remove the thing from the sprue.
Wow.
Works.
Wow.
Yeah. And people talk about, well, you can't run them faster than 5,000 RPM because it'll melt the plastic. Nah. That just means your tools are dull or you're pushing too hard.
Exactly.
I spin that thing at like 15,000 RPM with those tiny little burrs on it, and it's great. Makes a lot of jobs just so much easier.
Yeah.
And polishing, that's the other thing. If you have to do a lot of polishing, like you're polishing a clear coat, or even a canopy. Canopies are easy by hand, but hey, when you got power tools, why not, right?
Well, exactly right. If you can use a power tool on your Mercedes-Benz to polish that, it'd work just as well in your model kit, will it not? Well, the theory of it does anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys build car models. I know there was something about a Mustang thing you guys were doing recently.
Ian's the car nut amongst us.
Yeah. So I don't build as many car models as I should, but yes, I do build them.
So I've got a car model in the pipeline at the moment. I haven't got to painting it yet though.
So are you going to do base coat, clear coat, and polish the clear and all that?
Yeah, I'll probably give it a go. It'll be my first time giving it a proper go because it's a proper civilian car where it's like all one color for the most part. Not like I've done one race car, and with race cars it's like, do I really need to worry about the clear coat? It's a race car, They don't care.
When you see them up close, they're not clean.
Yeah.
But Will, using a power tool to polish up the clear coat, aren't you not worried about putting too much heat in it and then affecting the clear coat itself?
It's never happened to me. I'm not saying it can't happen, but a big part of it is picking the right tools. Like never ever use one of those felt wheels. Those things are made for polishing metal, and they will melt. They'll melt your thing in a big hurry. But if you get the little bitty cloth wheels, some of them are yellow, some of them are white. They're just miniatures of a cloth buffing wheel, and they work great. In fact, I've got one sitting right here on the bench. These little things, they get real frayed when you use them a lot.
Yeah.
But but they won't burn through a good clear coat. They won't even burn through paint.
Yeah.
But also a lot of that depends on what kind of polishing compound you're using. So,
and are you talking about using it on 2-pack?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can use it on any kind of clear, but yeah, definitely on a 2K urethane clear, because when that stuff is,
it's like rock.
it is exactly. Ian knows that stuff's bulletproof when it's if it's a really good one. Some of them don't cure out as hard as others, but if it's a really good one, you'll be begging for a power tool.
Yeah, because you'll be there all week trying to polish it by hand.
Yeah.
Another tool we haven't really spoken about, and it really cries out for its own episode, and I think we've even touched upon it in the past, is airbrushes. So I think we'll set that one aside for the moment. Ian, I know you've got some other interesting tools like that we use for photo etch. What's some of the photo etch tools that are
like your bending tools?
Yeah.
You can't go past a good bending tool. You've got your rounded tools, so you can make nice curves. I've even got one for doing hinges. So I can fold up like piano hinges.
Oh, wow.
So you just go into the I go into B&A Model World, go into the photo etch tool section and go, I don't have that one yet. Bye.
I will say, like, the bending, the rounded sort of cylindrical sort of bending tools for doing curves and stuff is really, really, really good value for money. I mean, without it, you're just struggling with like looking around for cylindrical objects to use, and it's never going to be the right diameter.
Yes,
I got just the thing for you right here, Julian. So check these out. I'm not sure the exact correct name, but these are, I think they're called round jaw pliers.
Oh, that's for taking spring washers off.
And circlips.
Yeah, circlips.
These are not circlip pliers.
Oh.
These are specific. Yeah, these are a jeweler's thing. See how the nose of the pliers is cone shaped? Each jaw is basically just a cone. They're made so you can bend circles in like jewelry wire of whatever diameter you need, as long as it's between the small end and the big end of the cone. Does that make sense?
Ooh, I've got to get me one of them.
I'm trying to think about the fact that people are listening instead of looking, and I hope I'm right accurately, but I think they're called round jaw pliers. For doing little hand
basically look like pliers with two cones on the end, two very long.
Yeah, exactly what they are.
So the type I'm using are the actual cylindrical sort of
Yep, I got one of them.
Like a tool and die. It's
yeah. So like you basically have like a half pipe cut out of a big block of aluminium, and then you've got like a whole bunch of rod in various sizes that you then use, because the problem is, like, once it gets over a certain size, you can't really use conical shaped things to bend cylinders. I mean, you can do wire just fine, but and like maybe for actual jewelry work where you've always got round, smoothed edges on things, that's totally fine. But if you're actually doing a large flat sheet that you then got to bend a curve into, you really need the right tool for the job.
Yeah. Another good tool, Tamiya have got their own little bending pliers too.
I find them useful handy to hold them when I'm cleaning up a part of photo etch, just taking a burr off the edge.
Because they're nice and flat.
Yeah.
They've got a really nice flat surface, so you're not going to destroy anything, and it holds it nice and tight.
Yeah.
The weak point I find on those is the tip will move around, kind of like bad tweezers, like they won't line up.
Oh, you're right. They do have it. Yeah, they do have a little bit of flex in them.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they were actually far more rigid.
Well, considering what they charge you for them.
Yeah, but if you're just sort of doing really super basic, like if the amount of like photo etch work you're doing is you bend one bracket for this tank every 3 models, it's fine for that.
Yeah.
I find them a bit more useful for simple, basic, everyday photo etch jobs than getting out the typical things that get badged as photo etch tools, where you've got like the screw down thing and all the teeth on it.
Oh, the hold and fold.
That's
all
a
those
great tool.
things.
I love my hold and fold.
Yeah,
I find them really cumbersome. Just like for one bend, you gotta play this game where you gotta position it just right, and then you tighten it down. And when you tighten it down, it moves a little bit. And
you're not doing it properly, Julian.
yeah, that's probably it. I have one of those for the right time to use it, but if I can get away with it, I won't use it.
Yeah. Another handy tool I found, the good old chopper.
Yeah.
That is a lifesaver.
That's a newer version of it, though, isn't it? The one you got?
Yeah, I've got the one from RP Tools.
Yeah, that was
a magic tool.
Yeah, if you've got to cut a bunch of evergreen rod or whatever, yeah, those things are great. I've got one. Doesn't cut very square, though. That's my only beef with it.
I think it's the blade. I think they should have a one, like flat on one side, curved on the other side.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because in typical SMCG fashion, we had a thread about that once that ran for like days and hundreds of comments, because somebody put up a picture of the chopper and they were like, I can't get it to cut square. And it was on. And there were guys who were like, this thing's the greatest thing ever. So we were all testing it and trying it out. And sure enough, the thing doesn't really want to cut square because a razor blade is beveled, right? Mm. And so somebody said, oh, if you could, just like you said, you can get a blade that's beveled only on one side. I won't even bore all your listeners with all the trouble I went to of finding and sourcing a blade like that I could modify and put in my chopper. And the long story, much less long, is don't bother.
Didn't make any difference.
Didn't help. Yeah.
Well, no. There you go.
Yeah, we all thought we were super smart. Oh yeah, let's do that. Didn't work.
You just saved me some money.
Yeah. And it was hard to get that kind of blade. Not an easy thing to find.
No, it wouldn't be.
Oh wow. Guys, we're coming up for 2 hours and we could talk for a whole lot more, and I think maybe we should look at getting Will back, and we can perhaps have another discussion just on the airbrushes alone in the future, because that'll take up a whole episode.
Yep.
Well, it's been great to have you on the show. For those people who are perhaps living under a rock or have just returned from another planet, where can they find you and listen to you?
At the tool store, buying more tools.
No, this is where you're supposed to plug your YouTube channel.
Oh, well, I don't do that too much. I almost feel bad sending people to my YouTube channel, but it's just under my name, Will Pattison. I have a lot of nonsense on there. I think I'm getting close to 300 episodes.
Wow.
And,
that's huge.
If you listen to some guys, it's 10% content and 90% BS, and that may be true. I don't know, but I just do what I do, and I do tend to get pretty nerdy and go pretty deep. So if that's your thing, come check it out. I like the details, and I do love tools for sure, and I do talk about them.
Cool. And you've also got a Facebook page that you run as well?
Well, I don't run by myself. I always make sure that people know that's a team effort. But yeah, Scale Modelers Critique Group. We've got Matt McDougall and myself are the admins, and then we've got a dedicated team of 3 moderators: Ian Bonner, Tony Lindgren, and Rob Knight. They help us keep the place under control. It gets a little wild in there sometimes. So
I could imagine.
And fools are not lightly appreciated or suffered.
You know what? We're all fools. We all do. we all do silly things, but I will grant you that SMCG has a slightly different environment than the average Facebook model making group. Yeah, I will admit to that. We like it. We like to keep things fun and light, but heavy on craftsmanship.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, it's been great to have you on the show, Will, so thanks very much. Before we head off, I've got a personal announcement which I want to make, and that is I'm heading to the US next year for the Nationals. It's going to be held in Las Vegas. The only rider I'll put on that is that this COVID thing needs to be over and done with, or a vaccine needs to be available before I'll be able to travel. But I'm sure hoping to make it out there in August next year. I don't know about Ian and Julian yet. They're sort of still mulling up their options, I think. But it's sort of something that I've always wanted to do, and I've decided, 2021 is going to be the year I'm going to get there.
Yep. Sounds like a plan, Dave.
All going to be in Texas this year, but that obviously isn't happening.
Yeah, that's a shame because Texas
is
really
worldwide. Because we lost our big show.
And of course, Telford's been knocked on the head as well, so it's just not the year for large shows. And so I thought, well, you know what? Next year, 2021, damn, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do it.
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, mate. It's great to have you on the show. We've got our 200th episode coming up in about a couple of months, so we'll probably get you back on just to say hi for that one as well. But certainly we need to think about doing an airbrush show, and we'll definitely keep you in our mix for that one. So thanks, mate. It's been great having you with us.
I really appreciate it. When you guys said you were going to talk about tools, I was like, sweet. So I feel like the guy who invited himself over when I heard there was free beer.
No problems at all. Thanks very much, Will.
Thank you.
Fine Scale Modeler is the world's most recognised and essential magazine for modelers, and is available in all good newsagents and newsstands, or wherever you purchase your magazines. Alternatively, go to their website www.finescale.com and subscribe to either a print edition or their digital edition. Go now. Go to www.finescale.com. All right, well, that's about it for the show, so let's have a sign-off. Let's go to you first, Ian.
Well, we all know photo etch will be your friend.
Julian, what have you got for us?
Doug, you always put me on the spot. And I can
How
never
can I
think
always
of
put you on the
anything,
spot?
right?
This is episode like 94 or 93, man. Come on.
I don't know. I don't think about it until it's like right upon me, and then I've got nothing.
Hey, I've got a book of phrases here for you to read up on.
Okay. You know what? You put that book away. All right. I don't need your book of popular culture references. Like, just drink some coffee with your build. Do that.
Coffee.
Yes, drink some coffee.
Oh,
There's nothing. You can't go wrong with that.
Well, you can't go wrong with beer either. I'd be recommending beer more than coffee.
No, just coffee will keep you going longer, whereas beer is just going to make your hand more unsteady or something.
Hey, clearly you haven't drank a lot of coffee in one sitting, because that can make your hand shake just as much as drinking beer, let me tell you.
Well, I said a coffee, not...
All right, guys, we'll be back in a fortnight. See you then. Well, that's it for this show. And before we go, don't forget to check out the other 3 fantastic model podcasts. The first one is the Scale Model Podcast with Stuart Clark and his new co-host, Gerald Hyland. And also don't forget to support Stuart's fantastic initiative, which is the Great Modelling Survey. Of course, we can't forget those banjo-picking, whiskey-sipping hayseeds from Kentucky, Plastic Model Mojo, Michael and Dave, great friends of the show. And the new Kids on the Block, the Plastic Posse podcast with Scott, TJ, and Doug. All 3 of those are fantastic shows. Don't forget to rate them in your podcast app that you get the shows with. It just helps everybody else find the shows. We'll be back in a fortnight. My name's Dave, and thanks for listening.